It's not every time that a senator can stand on a point of order. If you read Standing Order, I believe, 98, it tells you when, as a senator, you can stand on a point of order. But you see, we have made that one so wide that any time a senator wishes to say something, they will stand on a point of order. Whereas our standing orders actually are very specific at what moment should a senator stand on a point of order. So let us stick to what is provided in our standing order to avoid these other numerous standing orders that may not strictly be deemed to be points of order. That does, of course, that does not mean that what Senator Wambua has raised is not important, but it can be raised not through a point of order. It can be raised administratively, and how I wish, Senator Wambua, you raise this either with the clerk or with me in my office. Maybe today we will discuss that exhaustively. Let's proceed on, clerk.
Order number 6, notice of motion.
Senator Oburu. Yes, you have a motion that you ought to give notice today, arbitrary arrest of Kenyan fishermen by Ugandan authorities.
Oh,
that is...
Mr. Speaker, was not given.
Were you given the order paper for the day?
He doesn't have the motion.
Kindly assist the Honorable Senator with the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was not given this. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to give notice of the following motion. Mr. Speaker, this is on the arbitrary arrest of Kenyan fishermen by Ugandan authorities. Mr. Speaker, that aware that the communities around the lake rely on fishing as their main economic activity, their source of food and employment. Concerned that the fishermen have reported harassment from the Ugandan security personnel, including arbitrary arrests and imposition of unreasonable fines. Further concerned that in November 2021, the Kenya International Boundaries Office formed a joint committee with the Ugandan authorities that did not effectively delineate the boundaries that would have helped avoid conflict between the two countries. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves, A, that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, in collaboration with the Ministry of East African Community, the ASALs and Regional Development, engages the counterpart ministries in the Republic of Uganda to, 1, fast-track the delineation of the Kenyan-Uganda boundary, 2, develop measures to curb the arrests of Kenyan fishermen by Ugandan authorities, 3, institute a protocol for sustainable development of the Lake Victoria Basin on the sharing of resources between partner states, and B, the Ministry of Interior and National Administration to deploy the Kenya Coast Guard in the territorial waters of Lake Victoria to enforce maritime security and safety. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move. I beg to give notice.
Senator Karen Nyamu.
Then number 8, it was signed by Senator Joseph Nyutu Nyugi MP. This report was not adopted by 5 other members. If you do your basic mathematics, 9 minus 4 is 5. It is not 4. I beg to submit.
What's your point of order, Majority Leader?
Give me the mic, please.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I'm looking at the report that is before us. First of all, we've gone against very cardinal rules of procedure in this House, Madam Speaker. You have allowed Senator Ledama to cast aspersions on distinguished senators. When you allow him to rise on a point of order and say that this committee sneaked in a report, that, first of all, needs to be deleted from the Hansard and the records of this House. Because, Madam Speaker, the Senate Minority Whip was seated here yesterday in the afternoon. There is a procedure through which you table reports. The order was called. The chairperson of that committee, whether you are there or you are not, is none of our business. What we are concerned about, Madam Speaker, is the fact that you have allowed a senator to cast aspersions on colleagues, saying that we sneaked business, or those colleagues sneak business into this House. That cannot be left, Madam Speaker, on the record of this House, Madam Speaker. Because we know for a fact that this order was called up, a report was tabled, as is a normal procedure. Before we go on to the point of order that he has raised, Madam Speaker, I'd wish that for purposes of record, because this is a House of Records, Madam Speaker, that Senator Ledama withdraws the offensive part of his comments before we can move on to discuss the point of order that he has raised, Madam Speaker. We cannot allow a culture where if you do not agree with a particular report, you cast aspersions on your colleagues, that you say it was. Secondly, he has said this report is serving selfish interest. That is very shameful, Madam Speaker, because I can see that a committee sat down, there are minutes of their sittings. You want to tell me, Madam Speaker, that are we setting a practice and a culture now that when committees of this House sits, and not just another committee, this is a committee chaired by the Speaker, deputized by his vice, that they can sit down to transact selfish business. I was taken aback, and I demand, Madam Speaker, that Senator Ledama withdraws and apologizes to the members of this committee, because he does not have to agree with it to make and cast aspersions on the members of his committee, Mr. Speaker, before we discuss whatever is raising. That cannot be left on record.
Before we proceed, I think it is official and it was recorded yesterday in the proceedings of this House that the report was presented before the House. Whether it is properly before this House or not, that will be subject to a certain verification, which will be done by the Speaker. But in the meantime, I would invite Senator Ledama to withdraw the use of the word sneak and use different words. Let's have order in the House.
Madam Speaker.
Let's have order, Senator Ledama.
Madam
I
Speaker.
have given a direction,
Madam
very
Speaker.
simple direction. The report was formally tabled. I was in this House yesterday. The report was formally tabled. We would request the use of parliamentary language so that if business is properly brought before the House, you could use different words to describe the same thing that you're saying without using the sneaky language. So I invite you,
Madam Speaker, if you
Senator
allow me-
Ledama, I invite you to withdraw the use of the word sneak, then we proceed on. I can make a finding on the report.
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving a directive. But what I would like to state here is that I said, and I think the Hansard will bear me witness, that when a report is sneaked in, and Madam Speaker, you know, the majority leader, you know, is so emotional, and all I'm saying is that let us follow the procedures of this House. We have standing orders. He cannot come in here and I say that I'm against the report. I did not debate on the substantive matters on the report. All I did was open page 1, 2, and 3. And when I opened page 3, it is quite evident. It's on my right. I could see clearly that it has only been, so Madam Speaker,